All right, so as Troy said, we're trying to take it easy this week. And staying in line with our theme from the rest of the show, we asked you guys your favorite manga, or rather, what title made you a fan of manga, and to tell us what you liked about it. So let's see what you guys said. Nick says, the handful of random Show and Jump magazines I was able to order from Scholastic book orders in school. I was a huge Yu-Gi-Oh fan as a kid, so I ordered anything with Yugi's face on it. Those magazines introduced me to an entirely different kind of entertainment I had never even heard of before, and I was utterly fascinated by it. I still have all of those issues to this day, and I treasure them as some of my earliest comics in my collection. Daryl says, Shaman King, which I used to read in the U.S. version of a Show and Jump years ago. Haruki Taiki's Boy on a Quest tale won me over with Taiki's exaggerated character designs, wild facial expressions, hairstyles, and body language. The characters almost always seem to be excited, angry, or passionate, never dull. Shaman King showed me how versatile manga can be at expressing a vast array of characters' emotions. I also found the supernatural subject matter quite interesting. Mariki says, Death Note, aside from it being a classic, the manga is beautifully illustrated and is an excellent study in characterization and design. On a deeper level, it questions the vague idea of good and bad and who has the right to act as judge, jury, and executioner. And Chris5518 says, Berserk for me, the story and pacing of the series, as well as the amazing artwork, definitely helped getting me into manga. And Taryn says, loved this book along with Area 88, photo of Akira. Zach says, Battling Alita, it absolutely hooked me in. I loved the story.
All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, like, first of all, like, I'm curious if there's a manga or even an anime that like you two particularly love or enjoy. I can tell you right now, they made a manga out of it, but like I never really bothered reading it. It was Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Those are my two favorites. That said, as far as manga goes, I got to be honest, I'm not the most well-versed. I tried to read Gantz and it kind of grossed me out like pretty quickly. And but at the same time I read Battle Royale, which is violent and like disturbing all at the same time. And I read it like issue to issue. So, whatever, like, but so maybe I'm just a hypocrite. But what about you, Mia? Is there like an anime or manga that you love, the thing that got you into
honestly, manga wise, Ito's work is amazing. I've just got into it recently and I don't know how I didn't before because I love horror and manga. But he's just so good at giving you these really chilling supernatural storylines. And I mean, and they're absolutely crazy, but at the same time, they kind of get to you in a way that you're like, I know this is entirely not possible, but what if? And it just creeps you out to the core. So
yeah. No. I mean, I know like he's considered a master for a reason, right? And like there's an embarrassment of riches in terms of like how much stuff you can get by Junji Ito on top of that. So I'm all for it. Ashley, like I don't know, are you a big manga anime person? Like I feel like you might be in the same boat as I am.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that. I don't know that I have anything really productive to add to this conversation. I'm not a really large consumer of either manga or anime. I will say when I was little, I was super into Yu-Gi-Oh! And like specifically Kaiba, who was his rival, for no other reason than like the way he dressed was hella dope. He had like unconventional buckles on his arms and like dramatic capes and stuff. This is not like productive or answering the question, but I felt the need to share.
No, I'm with it. You know what, that counts. That definitely counts. Like I'm actively trying to get into more manga and anime. And I've actually been watching a lot more anime lately. Just because I've been feeling left out of a lot of conversations. And I'm like, this is interesting. One conversation in particular that I feel like I want to maybe just not even feel left out of, but want to properly understand, is there's this ongoing conversation about which is better, manga or American comics. Now, of course, the obvious answer is why choose, right?
Right.
But at the same time, there's interesting layers to this that I think is actually says a lot. I was on a podcast recently. I recently mentioned that manga is kind of a choice of a generation. Like it's kind of like the thing that like if you're a certain age, this is definitely how you engage with the comic format, But there's also the argument that can be made that manga worldwide outsells anything that the American comics are doing right now. Right. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts on this, guys? Like, what do you think? And also the people watching watching online, like let us know in the comments. But I'm curious, like, what do you think about the manga versus American comics debate? Mia adjusted her seat, so I'm assuming she's ready to jump in.
No, I knew this question was coming, and I was just like, I was waiting for this because I know how you were like, I'm going to go easy and not tell a controversial or ask a controversial question, and then you said this one. I was like, yeah, this is going to be intense. But no, I think manga in some ways does top American comics in the fact that it's a slow burn. Most manga is going to be long, but that's because they're getting into the characters. They want you to feel involved. Like you really come out of this feeling like you know every character, like inside and out, whether it's the main character or a minor character that might die off or not be used later in the series. But you get to know every single character. There's a lot of like psychological play involved, I feel, in manga. And then the biggest thing is that there's an end. Like, like there is an ending for manga. Like it may be like 100 and something issues long, but there is an end and things wrap up. And so there is this finality. And like, if people die, they die. They don't come back later. It's I don't know. It's this kind of realism, I guess, inside of a non-realistic world.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of, I understand. I do take issue, like I've heard people say some similar things. I do take issue with this idea that I feel like in American comics, you do spend time with a lot of all the characters, right? And I've heard some arguments like, American comics always end the same way. I don't think that's necessarily true either. I think that's kind of like selling American comics short. That said, the one thing I think manga has over, I won't say all American books, because clearly like certain creators stick around. But like the one thing that a manga has over a lot of American books is this notion that, or is the fact that you get one creator on one book. So it's one voice for a significant stretch of time. And so like, like regardless if One Piece goes on for 1 million copies, right? Or a million collections, at the end of the day, it's still one person's story. And so I kind of find that a little bit more appealing from somebody who follows specific writers. Like that's usually how I engage with comics. Like I don't necessarily follow artists, but I will follow a specific writer because I want to see the themes, the arcs. Like, I want a narrative that kind of like carries me through several stages via the author itself. And you don't really get that necessarily all the time in American comics. And so, which could be frustrating because like, books get canceled. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you'll be knee deep into something. You're like, well, this is issue 75. You guys just end it. Like, and it hurts. So, it kind of hurts. I would imagine from an outsider looking in, it hurts your enjoyment of the American comics medium. That's all. What were you about to say, Ash?
To that specific point, it almost feels like maybe manga is more geared towards new readers or jumping on points because there are clear starting and ending points, and you don't run the risk of like signing yourself up for a thing that has no end in sight. So if it does feel like it's kind of an easier starting place, I should say, than maybe diving headlong into American comics, specifically if you were to pick like superhero comics that are ongoing and span like several different titles, that feels very daunting. And then something else I wanted to add in my limited exposure, I should say, to manga versus American comic books, I can't help but feel like the characters are more expressive.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of eased into that. I was like, is this gonna be a weird take or not?
Well, I mean, but I think that's interesting actually. I think it's very interesting you say that because I think that might be somewhat cultural. And I'm not the best person to talk on this, but I know I can talk on it from an American perspective, right? Americans are passive aggressive.
Yes.
And like, and I mean, like, I know that other countries sometimes look at us as like the deranged hillbilly in the family, right?
Oh my God.
I mean, that's how other countries look at us sometimes, and sometimes they're absolutely right about that. But yeah, I think that might be a cultural thing. Like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's kind of different because it's, I guess in manga, you have this ability to have these child looking characters, they seem really young, but they're having like really adult worldwide, adult problems. Whereas like in American comics, it's all adults, having adult problems. So of course there's kind of that like professionalism and like adultness in all the characters in American comics, whereas like I guess kids are just more expressive and they get away with being like manic and then like crazy emo the next second, whereas you don't get that I think as much in like these very mature characters, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think actually, you have a point there. What is this? Damon says, I won't debate between the two, but I think American comics has more recently been catching up to the diversity of story types that manga has long embraced. It's been hard for American comic creators to create anything without a superhero in it, but things like modern image comics have helped. Yeah, I'd say like the last, truthfully, I'd probably say the last 20 years. There's been a shift, and I mean, look, there's always been indie comics, like it's always been there, like that's it's in comics when they started off was like there was crime, there was romance, there was superheroes were just one thing that we did, and then we lost that for a while, and now I think somewhere I want to say roughly, and there's always been indie books of course, but somewhere around like I want to say the rise of the graphic novel, right, which is really like the 80s. It allowed for different types of stories to be told in the mainstream market, I think is the key thing here. So yeah, I think something's for that. Like I'm with you. I refuse to choose. I'm cutting my teeth on manga again for the second time because I did it like I want to say like 15 years ago. I tried a couple of manga and I was like, this works. I don't like this. This works. Okay, I'm done. But I'm actually trying to do it in earnest this time, just because I want to understand the market, and I want to understand. I want to understand like what the appeal is in general, and apparently the appeal for me is prison school. So
you're allowed to feel that way. That's valid.
Stop judging me, Mia. Stop judging me.
No, I love it. It's great.
But we did ask people online what they thought. And Ashton, did we create a garbage fire?
We did. This was a hot topic. So per Troy's suggestion,
throw me under the bus.
Hold on. I absolutely did not push back though. You were like, we should do this poll. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fantastic. Let's do it. And I even prefaced it with another incendiary poll and asked if manga was better than American comic books. And then all of my replies were like, how dare you?
In all fairness, this is the Free Comic Book Day audience, but Free Comic Book Day also does manga too. So
somebody quote tweeted this and was like, why would this account even ask this question? And I was like, okay, relax.
Yeah. I'm kind of over the policing of like the questions we ask. Like every now and then we get that one person is like, why are we talking about this? It's like, because everybody else is talking about it too. Yeah. Like, relax. But anyway, sorry.
Troy's got to ask the hard questions.
I can ask the hard questions.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. What's going on here? So, hey, it's me. I'm back with another incendiary poll. I guess I do kind of put you in front of the firing squad, Ashton. I'm sorry.
Here, Ashton, post this.
Right. Go ahead, Ashton.
Everyone yell at you.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm crouching in the corner with a bulletproof vest. Ashton's like, hey, guys. Is manga better than American comic books? So, all right, let's go around the horn. I'm going to refuse to choose. I say, like, look, they both do very specific things. I think that the cultural differences are what's interesting about them. I'll be honest with you. I think that's the key thing for me here is like, there are certain things that American comics do. And then even within American comics, you have different subcultures and how they tell stories, which is also fascinating. And then I feel like, I won't go across the board. I won't generalize here, but I feel like manga can be a little bit more uniform in what the storytelling approach is, and that's because they have divvied up certain genres. You've talked about this on Mangapedia. Certain genres are very specific and have certain tropes. I guess it's the same with American comics.
Don't forget that you can catch Previews World Weekly streaming live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific at Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.